There is a moment, and if you've ever experienced it, you already know the feeling, when the world outside goes completely, unnervingly quiet, not peaceful, not calm, quiet, the kind of silence that has weight to it, the kind that makes the hair on your arms rise before your brain has had a chance to explain why. You step outside, or maybe you're already there, on your porch, in your garden, walking a familiar path, and something is wrong. Not visibly wrong, not in any way you could point to. But the birds have stopped, every single one of them, and the air feels like it's holding its breath. Most people dismiss that moment. They go back inside. They pour another cup of coffee. They tell themselves it was nothing. But here's what they never stop to ask. What did the birds know that you didn't? Because they knew something. They always do. What you're about to discover isn't just about birds. It's about an invisible network of awareness operating just beneath the surface of the ordinary world. The world you move through every single day without realizing it's alive, with signals you cannot hear, cannot see, and were never taught to read. But birds can read them. And they have been reading them for longer than human civilization has existed. The silence was never random. It was never nothing. It was a message. And once you understand what it actually means, you will never hear a quiet yard the same way again. Let's start with something researchers didn't fully understand until surprisingly recently. Birds don't simply live in your yard. They monitor it. Constantly. Obsessively. In a way that would feel almost paranoid if we didn't understand the survival logic behind it. A single songbird, something as small and seemingly ordinary as a house sparrow, can detect changes in its sonic environment within fractions of a second. Not minutes, not even seconds. Fractions. Their auditory processing is so refined, so evolutionarily sharpened over tens of millions of years, that they are registering information about the world before your conscious mind has even registered that the world has changed. And sound is their primary intelligence system. Not sight, not smell, sound. The layered, overlapping, constantly shifting chorus of a healthy outdoor environment, what scientists call the soundscape, is actually functioning like a distributed alarm network. Every species contributing to it is simultaneously broadcasting and monitoring. It is, in the truest sense, a living conversation happening all around you. And you've been walking through it your whole life. When that conversation stops, it means something has entered the conversation that shouldn't be there. Now here is where things get genuinely strange. The silence doesn't happen because individual birds decide to go quiet. It spreads. One bird stops singing, then another, rippling outward from a single point. The point of threat, like a wave moving through water, and this wave can travel hundreds of meters in seconds. Scientists studying what they call bird alarms have watched this phenomenon propagate through entire forest corridors faster than any human observer could track with the naked eye. Which means, by the time you notice the silence, it has already been moving for a while. The event that caused it may have happened far from where you're standing. And yet somehow, the information arrived. You were inside it, and you didn't even realize it. Think about the last time you were outdoors and noticed a sudden stillness. Not the gradual quiet of evening, but an abrupt one. A snapping off. Where did you feel it first? In your ears, yes. But also, if you're honest about it, somewhere else. Somewhere deeper. Somewhere that doesn't have a name but responds to threat before your thinking mind has caught up. That reaction is real. It's old. It's you reading the same signal the birds are reading, just slower and less precisely. Here's what the birds know that most people don't. The soundscape isn't just background noise. It's a constantly updated picture of safety. And certain events collapse that picture instantly. A hawk. A stalking cat moving low through the grass. A snake. A sudden pressure change in the atmosphere. The electromagnetic disturbance that precedes a lightning strike. Even, according to emerging research from multiple universities, the early infrasonic vibrations of geological movement, the kind that travel through the ground itself, far ahead of anything a human could detect. In 2008, ornithologists studying golden-winged warblers in the Appalachian Mountains documented something that stopped the scientific community cold. 5 days before a catastrophic tornado system tore through the Tennessee Valley, the warblers abandoned their nesting sites. They didn't wait for the storm. They left before any meteorological agency had issued a warning. Before any instrument registered a threat, they flew nearly 1,500 kilometers south, and then, after the storm had passed, they came back. They weren't confused. They weren't wandering. They made a decision, a precise, coordinated decision, based on information no human technology had yet captured. What were they sensing? The best current theory points to infrasound, low-frequency acoustic energy generated by large storm systems traveling through the atmosphere far faster and farther than audible sound. The birds could hear the storm coming. Not its thunder, its presence, its gravitational acoustic signature, days before it arrived. And they chose silence. And then they chose distance. The silence was the first warning. But it goes further than storms. Much further. Scientists studying bird behavior in earthquake-prone regions of Italy and China have documented consistent patterns of behavioral disruption in the days and sometimes weeks before significant seismic events. Birds abandoning nesting sites, colony birds refusing to return to their roosts, and silence, deep, spreading silence, in areas where the ambient soundscape is normally constant. The current hypothesis centers on two mechanisms: the detection of radon gas released by stressed rock formations beneath the Earth's surface, and the sensitivity of birds' inner ear structures to microfluctuations in the magnetic field. Fluctuations that occur as tectonic plates shift and stress accumulates along fault lines. In other words, birds may be listening to the Earth. Not metaphorically. Literally. Reading tremors that haven't happened yet through senses so precise they register geological tension the way a tuning fork registers frequency. The silence in your yard may not be about what's above you. It may be about what's beneath your feet. Now here is the part most people never think about. You've been trained your entire life to treat bird sounds as background, as ambient, as the pleasant noise of the natural world operating quietly in the space around your actual life. But what if that framing is entirely backwards? What if you're the background, and the soundscape is the signal? Research into the neural architecture of bird cognition, particularly studies from the Max Planck Institute and from field ornithologists in New Zealand, suggests that the acoustic environment birds maintain isn't passive, it's managed. Birds are not simply reacting to a soundscape, they're constructing one, monitoring it for gaps, filling those gaps. And when something breaks the pattern in a way that can't be filled, when the threat is too large, too close, too uncertain, the entire system collapses into silence. The silence is not an absence. It is a decision. And that decision carries information that has been triggering the ancient alarm centers of mammalian brains, including yours, for far longer than anyone can calculate. Long before we built cities, long before we gave names to things, we were listening to that silence and running and surviving. You still respond to it. You just don't know why anymore. And this is where it becomes personal. Because this isn't just happening in forests and wetlands and remote wilderness areas. It's happening in your neighborhood. It happens in the tree line at the edge of your yard. It happens in the bushes along your fence, in the gutters of your roof, in the hedgerow beside the road you drive to work every morning. The birds around you are running a continuous, sophisticated monitoring operation that you have essentially never paid attention to. And they are, right now, in real time, encoding information about the safety and stability of your immediate environment in the acoustic texture of the air around your home. When your yard goes quiet in the middle of an ordinary afternoon and nothing visible has changed, something invisible has. Sometimes it's a predator. Sometimes it's an atmospheric shift. Sometimes it's something no instrument will measure for another several hours. And sometimes the birds know and nothing ever happens. Because the threat passed. Because the hawk moved on. Because the storm system weakened before it arrived. But the silence was still real. It was still information. Here's what researchers are beginning to take seriously in a way that felt radical just a decade ago. The idea that the behavior of bird populations in a given area could function as an early warning system, not just for wildlife, but for humans. Projects in multiple countries are now quietly studying whether automated acoustic monitoring systems, microphones feeding into AI-driven soundscape analysis platforms, could detect the collapse of bird vocal activity and use that collapse as a predictor of incoming geological events, severe weather, or ecosystem stress. In simple terms, using the bird's silence as an alarm. Which raises a strange, slightly haunting question. The birds have always been an alarm. They've been broadcasting warnings in a language we could hear, but never bothered to learn. For all of recorded human history, in every culture that lived close to the land, people read the behavior of birds and acted on it. Hunters, farmers, sailors, soldiers. And then we built walls and put on headphones and started calling it superstition. Now we're building microphones to listen to them again and calling it science. Both things are true. Both things have always been true. The final layer of this is the one that may stay with you longest. The silence before something terrible. Before the earthquake, the storm, the predator, the unknown is not just a warning signal. It is, in the deepest sense, a form of collective intelligence operating across thousands of individual minds simultaneously. The birds are not thinking, danger, they're not reasoning it out. They are responding, instantly, collectively, without central coordination, to a shared perception of reality. Each bird going silent contributes to a silence that is larger than any of them. Each bird reading the silence of others confirms the threat and deepens the response. It is, in a very real way, a network, a living, distributed, self-organizing intelligence, made of small, warm bodies and hollow bones and ancient senses we've only begun to measure. And you are on the edge of that network. You've always been on the edge of it. You just weren't listening. Think about the last time a moment of outdoor silence stopped you cold. That feeling you couldn't name. The slight rise in your chest. The strange alertness. The sense that something was different without knowing what. You weren't imagining it. You were receiving information. Transmitted across species. Across millions of years of shared evolution and a dangerous, beautiful, endlessly communicating world. The birds fell silent. And for just a moment, you heard the message they were sending. The question is, next time it happens, will you stop and listen? Have you ever been somewhere, your yard, a trail, a place you know, when the birds went completely silent and something happened afterward? Or even if nothing happened, something felt different in that moment. Tell me, what did you notice? What did you feel? Because I believe there are stories in those quiet moments that most people never speak out loud, and they deserve to be told.